The day my life fell apart started like every other Tuesday. I kissed my wife, Emily, goodbye before sunrise, grabbed my coffee, and headed to work without a second thought. We had been married for 9 years, and although life had become predictable, I believed predictable meant safe. Emily smiled as she stood at the front door, waving until my car disappeared around the corner. If someone had told me that would be the last morning I looked at her with complete trust, I would have laughed. Instead, I drove straight toward the office, completely unaware that another man, my own boss, would soon be walking to the front door of the house I had spent years building. Around noon, my boss, Richard Collins, unexpectedly left the office after receiving what he claimed was an urgent phone call. No one questioned it. Richard was the company's respected regional director, known for demanding perfection from everyone around him. I spent the afternoon buried in deadlines, while Emily sent me a casual text asking how work was going. Nothing about her message seemed unusual. She even reminded me to pick up milk on my way home. Looking back, that ordinary text haunts me more than anything, because it was sent while she was apparently entertaining Richard inside our home. The normalcy of her words hit a reality I never imagined. That evening, Emily greeted me with dinner already prepared and her usual cheerful smile. The house looked spotless, almost suspiciously perfect, but I dismissed the thought immediately. We ate together, talked about television shows, laughed over an old memory, and eventually went to bed. If guilt was eating her alive, she hit it better than any actress I had ever seen. Days passed, then weeks. Nothing appeared different, yet small things slowly began bothering me. Richard suddenly became unusually friendly toward me at work. Emily started paying much more attention to her appearance whenever I mentioned office events. Neither clue was enough to accuse anyone of anything, but together they planted a seed of doubt I couldn't ignore. Everything changed nearly a month later, while searching for an old toolbox in the storage closet. Behind a stack of moving boxes, I discovered a small digital voice recorder covered in dust. At first, I assumed it belonged to me from years ago, but then I remembered buying it after a series of neighborhood burglaries. I had hidden it near the living room bookshelf, hoping it might capture evidence if someone ever broke into the house while we were away. Somehow, I had completely forgotten about it. Curiosity got the better of me. I replaced its batteries, connected it to my laptop, and found dozens of old recordings. Most contained nothing except silence, television noise, or empty rooms. Then I opened a file recorded on the exact Tuesday Richard had left work early. At first, the audio was ordinary. The front door opened. Emily greeted someone warmly. A man's voice answered, unmistakably Richard's. My stomach tightened instantly. They laughed about traffic before walking into the living room. I expected the worst, preparing myself to hear undeniable proof of betrayal. Instead, what followed stung me for an entirely different reason. Richard sounded nervous, almost frightened. He repeatedly apologized for bringing this problem into our home. Emily reassured him that I would never find out, because she didn't want me carrying the burden. Then Richard revealed something that made every hair on my body stand up. The company where I had worked for 11 years wasn't simply laying off employees. It was secretly planning to frame one senior manager for financial fraud to protect several executives from an ongoing federal investigation. That senior manager was me. I replayed the recording 3 times because I couldn't believe what I had heard. Richard admitted he had discovered internal emails proving executives intended to forge financial records using my employee credentials. According to him, once investigators arrived, I would become the perfect scapegoat, while everyone above me escaped responsibility. Emily wasn't helping Richard hide an affair. She had invited him over because he refused to discuss something so dangerous inside the office, where conversations were monitored. She begged him for proof that could save my life before the executives carried out their plan. Richard promised he was gathering evidence, but warned that exposing the truth could destroy his own career and possibly put both of them at serious risk. Suddenly, every suspicious detail I had noticed over the past month looked completely different. Just as I reached the end of the recording, another sound echoed through my speakers. A car door slammed outside. Emily whispered that I had arrived home much earlier than expected. Richard hurried toward the back door before stopping long enough to hand her a flash drive. His final words sent chills down my spine. If anything happens to me, Give this to your husband. He'll understand everything." Seconds later, the recording ended. I stared silently at the screen, unable to breathe. I had spent weeks secretly suspecting my wife of betrayal, while she had actually been risking everything to protect me from a conspiracy I never knew existed. But one terrifying question remained unanswered. Where was that flash drive, and why had Emily never told me about it? I barely slept that night. The recorder sat on my desk, and Richard's final words echoed endlessly in my mind. At sunrise, I quietly searched every drawer, cabinet, and storage box in the house, looking for the mysterious flash drive. Emily watched me from the kitchen without saying a word. Finally, she asked what I was searching for. Instead of accusing her, I placed the recorder on the table and pressed play. As the recording filled the room, tears immediately formed in her eyes. When it ended, she lowered her head and whispered, "I want to tell you every single day, but Richard made me promise to wait until we had enough evidence. If they discovered we knew, you would have been arrested before you could defend yourself." Emily disappeared upstairs and returned carrying an old hardcover cookbook I hadn't seen in years. She opened it, cut through the hollowed-out pages, and removed the flash drive Richard had mentioned. "I hid it where no one would ever think to look," she said quietly. My hands trembled as I plugged it into my laptop. Inside were hundreds of emails, financial reports, scanned contracts, and recorded conference calls involving several senior executives. The documents showed they had been moving company funds into shell corporations for years. When auditors began asking questions, they searched for someone whose electronic credentials could be manipulated. My employee account had extensive system access, making me the perfect target. Richard had secretly copied everything before they could erase it. Just as we finished reviewing the files, my phone rang. It was Human Resources asking me to report to headquarters immediately for what they described as an urgent compliance meeting. The calm tone of the caller only made my heart race faster. Emily squeezed my hand and insisted we contact an attorney first. Within an hour, we were sitting in a lawyer's office, where he carefully examined the flash drive and immediately realized the seriousness of the evidence. Instead of letting me walk blindly into the company's trap, he contacted federal investigators and arranged for us to meet them before I ever stepped inside headquarters. For the first time in weeks, I felt like someone was finally on my side. That afternoon, I entered the company's conference room with my attorney beside me. Around the polished table sat Richard, the CEO, 2 vice presidents, and several compliance officers. They slid a thick folder across the table containing forged financial statements, allegedly signed using my credentials. The CEO looked disappointed rather than angry, almost as though the outcome had already been decided. Before anyone could continue, my attorney calmly interrupted and informed them that federal investigators were already reviewing evidence proving the documents had been fabricated. The silence that followed was overwhelming. Richard looked directly at me, giving the smallest nod. In that moment, I finally understood he had risked everything to stop an innocent man from being destroyed. Minutes later, investigators entered the building with search warrants. Laptops, servers, phones, and filing cabinets were seized before anyone could destroy additional evidence. Several executives attempted to leave through a private exit, but were stopped by agents waiting outside. Over the following weeks, investigators uncovered years of financial fraud, money laundering, and deliberate falsification of company records. The forged files connected directly back to the executives who had created them, while Richard's evidence established a clear timeline proving I had been selected as the intended scapegoat. Instead of being arrested, I became one of the investigation's key witnesses. Watching the people who had planned to ruin my life escorted from the building in handcuffs was a moment I will never forget. Months later, the company publicly apologized and reached a settlement that restored my reputation completely. I accepted a position with another firm whose leadership valued honesty over appearances. Richard testified during the investigation and, despite sacrificing his career, earned the respect of countless people who recognized the courage it took to expose the truth. Emily and I slowly rebuilt the trust that had been shaken, not because she had betrayed me, but because fear had forced her to carry an impossible secret alone. We promised each other that no matter how dangerous the situation became, we would never again allow silence to stand between us. Our marriage survived because the truth finally arrived before the lies could win. Sometimes I think back to that forgotten voice recorder collecting dust in the closet. If I had never found it, I probably would have divorced a woman who was secretly trying to save me while walking straight into a trap designed to destroy my future. Instead of exposing an affair, that tiny device uncovered conspiracy far bigger than my worst suspicions. It reminded me that assumptions can be more dangerous than facts, and that the people we doubt the most are sometimes the ones fighting the hardest for us behind the scenes. The hidden recording didn't just change my life forever. It gave me my life back before someone else could steal it.